Hi, this is the ultimate guide for beginners for Sprite. So let's start. First, we have the Sprite section. Here we can change the Sprite name, so I'm just going to change this to my Sprite. We can change the X and Y axes, so let's just do 20, then it changes. Y 20, then it goes upward, negative 20 goes downward. We can use the hide and show variables, which basically hides our sprites. We can also use the size variable, which can, by the name, change the size. We also have the direction variable, and there are three types of directions you can choose. The first type is all around, which you can change the full direction. The second is the left and right. This means you can only change from left to right, like so. And now the final one is do not rotate, and this one just fixes your position. Now let's go over to the costumes tab. And over here we have two costumes, and like from the Sprite menu we can change the costume name by costume 1 and undo and redo. So if we do this, we can undo this and redo this, and we can ungroup and group. So you can just select all of these and group and move them all around in one simple piece. And you can also center your pieces, which is very efficient. You can change the layers, so you can go to the back of the other parts, or the front or backward, different parts. You can fill them different colors. You can change the outline size and color. And you can copy and paste, like so. And you can also delete parts and mirror them, so you can delete this. If you just group this and move this to the center and click flip horizontal, then it'll mirror it horizontally, and if you click flip vertical, then it'll flip vertically. Let's delete this. And now to the sounds, you can play different sounds. You can this menu is the same for all of them. You can either upload, or you can just pick a random sprite, or you can just paint your own, like so, or you can just choose one from the vast library of sprites. If you press this, then it'll just go back to the search menu. Now, same goes for the backdrop, but when you edit the backdrop, it always automatically goes to the back of your sprite, so you can't really change this. It's just a system, basic system. Alright, so now we got the UI part done. Now for the coding part. First of all, we have the motion blocks. The move 10 steps block. This just changes your x-axis. You can do negative 10 to move backwards. The turn blocks. You can just oops, I forgot to. You always have to choose one of these, so I suggest this one. You can change these however you want. Go to random position. It just goes to the random position. Mouse pointer, we'll get to that later. Go to XY, you can choose where the position you want it to be. you can glide to that random position smoothly, or you can also go to the mouse pointer, which I will explain later. You can also glide to a fixed point, so let's put 0, 0 and 0.5 to make it faster. You can also point in directions, so if you want to be too straight, you can be 90 or 180, but let's just put this to 90. The point towards block, we'll get to that later in the conclusion. A change X, set X, change Y, and set Y blocks. The change X is just basically the move 10 steps. Oh, and it's worth mentioning that the move 10 steps always changes the X by the direction it's pointing. So if you just put 180, it'll go down, like so. Let's just change this back to 90. Now the change X block, it just changes your X position, whether at any direction you're at. The set X, it just sets your X axis. Change Y, the same thing, and the set Y, the same thing. Next up is if on bare edge bounce. So if we have simple movement system going on, and if this happens to hit this wall, it'll go back this way and bounce forever. Set rotation is basically the same thing as clicking these, but with code. And these are variables of a sprite. The top one is the direction, so if we just change this to 180, then this will also move to 180. The X position, it just tells your sprite's X position, and so does the Y position variable. Next up is the look section. We can make our lovely cat say something for amount of time. So this is I'm a cat for 5 seconds, saying speech marks. Or we can just say hi there, and it'll never go away unless we replace this, like so. The sync blocks are the same, but it's a sync box. So we can just erase this. The switch costumes, next costume, switch backdrop, and next backdrop blocks. So the switch costume 2, for this we have to make new costumes. So for this one, let's make the cat color green. Switch costume to costume 3 changes it green, and switch costume to costume 2 changes it back to normal. The next costume just keeps on moving down the list, and if it reaches the edge, then it goes back to the front. The switch backdrop is the exact same as the switch costume. If we make this green on the first one and white on the second one, we can just make this green and make it white. Or we can also make it to the next backdrop, which was basically this, but in this block we can do the previous backdrop, which goes up, and the random backdrop, which chooses a random one. We can change the size. We can set the size, and we can change the color and set the effects and clear them. So what the color effect does is, first of all, you need to know that in the color spectrum, it goes to 0 to 100, and the saturation goes to 0 to 100, and the brightness also goes from 0 to 100. And in the color spectrum, as you can see, green is 34, 35, blue is 66, and it goes on. So with this block, you can essentially change the color with data. So like so. You can change, you can also set the color effect back to normal. And the fisheye effect, this kind of makes it, it kind of curls around the center. If you keep on spamming this, it kind of looks like a circle. And keep in mind, you can always press this to clear the graphic effects you make. You can also set the fisheye and the whirl, which makes it a spiral. You can also set this and pixelate, which essentially makes the sprites into blocks. And you can also set this. Mosaic, you can multiply these, which is pretty cool and useful. You can also change the brightness to make it lighter or darker. And you can also change the ghost effect. Now, the more higher this is 0 to 100. If it's 100, it will be completely invisible. And if it's 0, it will be opaque. Oops, set ghost effect to 0. There we go. So those are the graphic effects. Now the show and hide is basically this, but in blocks. You go to front, go forward, and these three are simple. First of all, we just need another sprite, so let's just choose this ball. There you go. This took a second to load in. So let's say we make this ball 300 and we put this ball in front of our cat, and now we can't see our cat. Now to fix this, we can just press this, which launches our cat to the front layer, or we can press this to hide it back, and it's still there but just behind this ball or layer. We can also move forward and backward in different layers. So for one layer, since there's only one sprite above it, it'll go to the front. Backward, it'll go to the back. For these three, it just shows your sprite's costume number, which I'm on 1, backdrop number, which is white, so it's backdrop 2, and the sprite size. Now for the sounds. Play sound until done basically stops all the code in the bottom and make sure the sound is finished before continuing the code. The start sound basically starts the sound and keeps on running the code, so there's no stop. And the stop all sounds, yes, it stops all the sounds currently playing. The change pitch, set pitch, and clear sound effects are a bit more advanced, so there will be in another video. The change volumes, set volumes, and the volume variable. The change volume will essentially change the volume, like so. The set volume will set the volume, which is pretty simple. Now for the events, which are nearly the most important blocks in the whole application. The when green flag clicked, essentially it's when this little green flag is clicked on the top left corner. Now if we click this, it'll send the function, it'll send the fire event. to do anything that's under here. Remote event, yeah, sorry. And when space key pressed, you don't really need to press the green flag for this one. It'll just detect whenever you're pressing space or any key. You can also use any key. It'll detect. When the sprite clicked, like so, when backdrop switches to backdrop 1, basically if we use code to switch it to backdrop green, then it'll send a remote to do something. When the volume is over something like 90, then it'll send the remote as well. Timer, we're going to talk about that next time. When I receive broadcast, these are actually really useful. So you can use any message. So play. When I receive play. Now how you use this is I'll go in more advanced in another video, but the basic idea is if you just stick this code in one of the functions, then it'll broadcast this, and essentially it'll do anything that's inside this block. So that's really cool. And this spans across sprites as well. And broadcast and wait is essentially it makes it play the code and it stops until it's finished. So you can't really do anything else. For control, wait 1 second and then do anything underneath that. Repeats that amount of times. Forever, it repeats forever. It's simple. If else, we'll talk about that after we go to sensing and operators and variables. Wait until also after that. Stop all. If you just stick this to the end of the script, if you check all, it will stop the whole project. This script, the block of code attached to it, and other scripts in Sprite, only the scripts in this Sprite. Cloning. So if you just stick this to the back of a code, then it'll create a clone for you. And when you delete this clone, then it'll essentially delete your clone, but I don't have this attached to a block of code, so it really doesn't. When I start it as a clone, then it'll delete itself as soon as it's created, which is really cool. Alright, so let's just move his friends over here for the real cat. Now the sensing parts. Touching, color is touching, and distance. The touching is basically senses whether anything here is touching the character. So you just have to check it. The touching color, if the sprite is touching any color you select. Color something is touching another color. It just checks whether this color is touching this color in any sprite, then it'll send a true. And distance too. This is a bit more advanced. We'll talk about that later in another video. Asking and answering. Ask what's your name and wait. And the answer is set to this. Cool, happy. So there we go. Key, mouse down, mouse X, mouse Y. The mouse Y and mouse X just tells you your mouse's position. Mouse down, if the mouse down is anywhere in the project. Mouse is down anywhere in the project. Key space pressed, basically the same thing as when something key pressed, but detecting. You can also use any here as well. Set rank mode, loudness. These the timer, reset timer, year and dates. We'll talk about that later. The set drag mode, draggable, it allows you to drag your sprite. It's actually really cool. And if we do not draggable, as you can see, we can't drag it anymore. The username tells you the person who's using this project currently. Loudness, the volume, and the backdrop number or the costume number of something. You can use X position for sprites, Y position, direction, and anything you want. Now for the operators, we got plus, minus, times, divide by, pick random, more than, less than, and equal to. So it's basic addition, 2 plus 2. If you click this, equals to 4. 4 minus 2 equals 2. 4 divided by 2 equals 2 as well. 2 times 2 equals 4. If 3 is, then it'll be false because 3 is not more than 50. But if it is, then it'll give a true statement. Pick random, it picks any random from here to here. This is the same thing as more than, but the opposite. And equal to, it checks if anything is equal to this value. So that's pretty cool. The and, or, and the not. We can basically combine things like here. So these two must be true. Both must be true at the same time for the bottom come to go. The or it detects if any of these work, and that's pretty cool. And not basically just put anything you want in there and it'll say the opposite. So normally this would be false since 0 is not equal to 50, but if we put not 0 equals to 50, then it will say true because it's not equal. Join, letter, links, apple contains. Alright. Join joins these two values. Letter, one of apple is A, 3 is P. You can do anything you want here. Length of apple is obviously 5, or hello, and that's 5 as well. Hi, ho, that's 2. Apple contains A is true, but it does not contain NB, so that's false. Mod, we will get to that in a more advanced video. It's a bit more complicated math, and this one is a lot more complicated, so that'll be in another video as well. But round, that's easy. We just put any number or decimal and it rounds to 7. Variables, these are one of the most useful types of block in Scratch. So you can make different types of variables. If you check for this sprite only, you can only see and use the data in the variable for the sprite you're in. If you check for all sprites, you can use it throughout the whole project. And cloud variables are currently only available for scratchers, which basically allow you to make variables global. For now, we're going to name this my variable, and for all sprites, my variable. Oh, it's because of this. We can use this as an example. The set my variable, change my variable, show and hide. The set basically sets it to anything you want. 1, we'll change it to 0, 1. Change by something, then it'll basically add 1 to our variable. If we just show this, then we can make it show and hide the same as a sprite and our costumes, like so. I think it's a bit glitchy. Let's try and make a new variable. I think this is a bit glitchy right now. I don't know why, but if we use this, then it will show and hide the variable on the screen here, like here. They make a list. It makes a list and the same check marks. My list. That also seems to be a bit lagging. I'll explain the properties of variables and making your own blocks in another advanced tutorial. But for now, that's about it in Scratch. We also have extensions which are a bit more complicated, and I'll explain again in another video. Now for the ones we have left, the a bit hard ones to explain. First of all, we have to make a bit of code. When key pressed, go to mouse pointer. Very simple. Glide a couple of seconds to mouse pointer. Same thing. You can also choose other sprites, so that's very useful. Point towards the bar or the mouse pointer, and the ifs. So since variables are a bit glitchy for me right now, I'm unfortunately not going to be able to show you how to use these. But we can also just use the operators. If 50 equals 50, then do anything here. So you can say hello for 2 seconds. No, wait. 50 equals 50. There we go. If else. You can just plop this in here. So basically what it's saying is when space key pressed, if 50 equals 50, then say 50 equals 50 for 2 seconds. Otherwise, we can say this is not true. And we can put dirty here. There we go. Now wait until let's use touching mouse pointer for example. When space is key pressed, we want to wait until the mouse pointer is touching our cat, and until that happens, the code is put on hold. So that's also sometimes useful, sometimes very frustrating. And finally, the repeat until. This repeats until, let's use touching mouse pointer again. Repeat until, let's change x by 2. But since you're touching the cat, it won't move. Now if you let go, there we go. So that's basically it for Scratch. That's the ultimate guide for beginners, and I will be doing an intermediate guide soon. So I hope you enjoyed, and thank you for watching. Bye.